Hi, my name's Sami. I'm the founder of the Winners Podcast. I'm an entrepreneur, in case you haven't guessed, and I founded this podcast to showcase all the entrepreneurial talent out there. Some of my friends, some of the people that I've come across starting all sorts of businesses, from recruitment like myself, serial entrepreneurs like myself, to people doing really interesting things with agencies in the media. So I hope you stay tuned. Maybe you can learn a thing or two wherever you're listening to, wherever you're watching this show. Please feel free to like, subscribe, share, rate, comment, all that stuff. I hope you enjoy the show.
I want to go experience that for myself.
That's important. Yeah. You often forget when you're working however many hours you did that. Do you know what? Yes, that client gave me that call.
We've really gone from wanting to be an astronaut to a pilot to an architect to.
I can attest to that.
Yes. I've worked with John Legend, Sting, Carlos Santana. We're talking about really recognized names in the entertainment industry.
I'm sorry, but my mother told me to be honest. Yeah. Hi.
Hello.
Anam. Lovely to meet you in person.
Thank you, Sami. Lovely to meet you as well.
Absolutely. I came across your profile on LinkedIn. That's how I kind of got to know you. And I think, the aim of this podcast, the aim of this show is really to showcase the fantastic work of people like yourself, entrepreneurs who are really making waves out there.
Thank you.
So that's why I wanted you to be here. And as I've said to you before this, this is all about you and about showcasing your story, really. So I'd love to give an intro, but I think you can probably do a much better job of that. Anam, please tell us a bit about yourself.
Thank you very much, Sami. Very flattering. I'll just start off. We'll look at who Anam is at the current moment, right? So I am an entrepreneur. I am one of the founding partners of The Hanging House. We are an experiential agency, and what we create are brand experiences. We bring the brand's essence to life, leverage technology to do that. That's a big part of who I am today. I apart from obviously the day-to-day of running the business, I also had creative there. I enjoy what I do very much. Right. I've always been this kind of person that has had many interests growing up. Right. So we've really gone from wanting to be an astronaut to a pilot to an architect to.
I can attest to that.
Yes. So we've really covered all of those grounds, and I've always wanted to get my hands dirty in different aspects of things, and I think there's just this curiosity that my current role allows me to actually indulge in, right? We work with a wide variety of brands, so from healthcare to kids brands to apparel, lifestyle. There's just there's always something new in the studio, and as head of creative, I obviously get to really dig deep into what the brand is about and do a lot of research. I never thought I'd be researching satellites, but we have, right?
Have you got any vacancies going?
So that's me. That's a little bit about what I do and what really keeps me going. What I enjoy doing. There's more to me than just me at work. However, that's that from a LinkedIn point of view.
Absolutely. Do you know, I can relate to so much of what you've said there. I've gone through a kind of similar trajectory of wanting to be not quite the astronaut. I think you've beat me there as far as ambition, but being a pilot, all these things. So I can absolutely relate. But let's move it back, right, to school. Right, Let's go all the way back to school. Who was Anam at that time?
Troublemaker. This is probably the first. There's certain aspects of me I can definitely say haven't changed in that sense. I was
a bit more control,
just a little bit. Growing up, I was one of those how do we put those, the overachievers in a certain sense, but this is up to like, let's say, middle school, and then things took a quick turn.
Okay. I'm curious now. Overachievers to
not so much. I think there's a certain aspect of me. So I don't tend to take life too seriously. Let's just put it that way, right? And I think that aspect of me really shone in my high school
is, if you
years.
don't mind me kind of saying, I mean, the impression that people have as an entrepreneur, you have to be a go-getter, right? You have to go after it. So that's quite an interesting.
I would say I'm 100% a go-getter, but I just don't take it too seriously. You know, I like things to flow organically.
Right.
I like to have fun doing what I'm doing. That's important for me.
Right.
I mean, I don't mean to steer off topic, but just let's say we were talking, but like, so fashion design, for example, something that I'm studying on the side just now, and I thought there was an interesting way of like kind of getting my.
How do you find the time? How do you honestly?
It's
you don't sleep.
Basically, let's just say it that way. It is very demanding, but you know, somebody asked me, so what makes you think that you're going to stand out as a fashion designer? I was like, you know, I don't start business because it's something that is going to make me X amount of money or whatever. Of course, those are things that you do have to be mindful of.
We have to pay bills.
Yes, but at the same time, I do it because I'm passionate about it. It's because it's something I enjoy doing, and I'm doing it for myself. But really coming back to me in school, I think that was something that I always, that's an aspect of me that was, that sometimes overtook the more serious part of things. And in high school, let's just say it that way. So I was a little bit more interested in kind of playing volleyball and skipping classes and doing all of these things, socializing.
I can relate. I can relate.
But I did. I kind of had this. Natural knack for storytelling, I think, or like having conversations with people and things like that back in the days. And I think that's where I decided that I wanted to get into journalism, or it was at least something that was always in the back of my head. Like, you know, I was always interested in getting into journalism. I was always interested in writing, and kind of, you know, that was my way of expressing myself. It was I wanted to become a columnist at some point, you know, and just talk about things that matter, things that I just like to bring people's attention to.
And did you at that time have any sort of topics or, you know, areas that you particularly wanted to focus on as a journalist? Did you want to cover certain political topics? Did you want to cover, I don't know, art, or was it just
not necessarily? I think it was if there was one thing, one theme maybe, if I'd say that was in common, that, you know, regardless of whether it was in let's not say politics, maybe that's not an area that I was very interested in, or still am, to be honest, but regardless of whether it was like, you know, crime, let's say, for example, or whether it was it was just social issues or whatever, the one thing that was in common about across everything was people, just like, you know, I think everyone comes from so many different backgrounds, and everyone has so many different experiences that's formed who they are at this point, that no two people view the same the same topic in the same way, right? So different perspectives and things like that. And I think the kind of writing I wanted to do was always conversational. But life took a turn, I guess, you know. So that was me in school. I did want to get into journalism, become an author at some point. Not too late, I'd say. But so that was not
too late.
That was me. I did. I did end up after high school. I wanted to do a bit of a shortcut, let's just say, to university, and I did end up joining Murdoch University, just in the UAE here.
Right.
It got into media, but think I dropped out about a month later, and we're not going to get into why and how and all of that. But
I've been there.
Yeah, and then I kind of just, I took I took life as it came to me. Really, I started doing a lot of part-time jobs. So I've worked on, from you can really just name
you
it.
sold phones at one point, bleach as well.
That's right.
You've definitely played the field as far as roles, right?
I did. I think so. I think my first job was at about when I was 16 or 17, really. And that was when I was promoting bleach at supermarkets. Right? So it was,
if you can sell bleach,
right?
You're good. You're good.
At the time, I didn't know that I was, really building myself up to be.
I'm curious. How do you go about selling bleach?
How do you go about selling bleach? I mean, you.
I'm coming, right? I don't know.
Yeah,
I've got 20 bags. Like everyone else, I've come in for just some milk and butter, right? But I'm leaving with half the aisle, right? And I've got these bags. I come across Anam. What do you say to me?
You're in the what's it called? The home care aisle? Can I call it that?
Let's say that.
Let's just call it that.
Yeah.
You're in the home care aisle now. Look, I mean, it used to be a little bit of both, right? Either you're there looking for bleach, because I mean, it's going to be a little bit. It's a little difficult for somebody to be convinced to buy bleach, or you're not going to make your way to that aisle if you're there to buy milk and butter. But yeah, I think it was just about like saying, so what is it that you're looking for? Or what, how often do you use it? And then kind of, get into the USPs of the product, really. Those were things that you'd had to learn. You kind of talk to, I think what was important was being able to speak to the kind of customer they were, right? Whether you're there with, whether it's a mom with a family that's there, or whether it's, I don't know, let's say there's a bunch of young bachelors that are kind of, there for their monthly grocery shopping. So I think it really depends on who it was that I was talking to.
That's such an interesting lesson there, because whether it's bleach, whether it's advertising, whether it's whatever it is, you're selling to someone's need, right? You're there to solve some sort of problem, right? And I find that really interesting how, you transition from selling bleach, selling mobile phones to what it is that you're doing now, which we'll get to. But yes, so you've done a bunch of jobs. What kind of inspired you to make the move to going and starting your own agency? How did that come about?
Right. So, funny enough, when I don't know if alhamdulillah for everything at this point, but when things, I think it happened by chance, because, or at least the path to it happened by chance, because I'd actually wanted to join a short course in journalism. It was a diploma course. It was about a year in journalism, and I ended up at this institute. And it so happened that the course coordinator or the program coordinator for that course wasn't available at the time. So there's this other lady who I had a conversation with, and at the end of the, she's talking to me about the program and talking me through everything it entails. And by the end of it, and she said, why are you doing journalism? She said, you'd be great for events. Look at you, And I was like,
what did she mean by that? I'm curious.
She was just like, oh, look at, you're, she's like, you're outgoing, you have like this zest for life, I guess. And she's like, journalism's boring, she's like, you're not boring. And I was like, oh, thank you. Obviously my 17-year-old self didn't know how to feel at that moment. But I heard her out, and I was like, and she managed to convince me that the events course was the one for me. Right. And that's how I kind of got into that industry. And
Did you know anything about events at all prior to speaking to them? Nothing.
Absolutely nothing, right? So, look, I'd definitely done my fair share of like part-timing at different events. So whether we're talking about ticketing and wristbanding at concerts, or whether it was at Jitex. Jitex Shoppers back in the day used to be this whole thing, because I used to work for Jitex Shoppers. consumers. So it's this exhibition or a fair, let's say a trade fair of sorts, but business to consumer. And it's just this massive sale for electronics that happens. And all the retailers are there, and it's just going nuts. And so they do need extra hands for people to be able to sell their products. And I used to do that every year. And there's this rush that used to come with it. So that was like,
imagine. It sounds like a busy kind of almost like conference-y.
Yeah, I mean, it was retail. Let's just put it that way. Retail on steroids. It's just like, it's like a fish market, but for electronics. Nice. Like it's just, So it was. It used to be really fun, and I think the most that I'd had in terms of event experience was front facing. So there was really no idea of what goes into the back end of like putting this entire thing together, which is what obviously my institute then opened my eyes to. So that was a 1-year diploma that I did. Very, very hands-on. It was a great experience. I did walk into it knowing absolutely nothing about what's happening. But I believe by the end of it, I'd worked from the Dubai Jazz Festival and working with with massive names that I really never thought that I'd be exposed to.
As part of that course. Of the
course, wow. Yeah. So I've worked with John Legend, Sting, Carlos Santana. We're talking about really, recognized names in the entertainment industry, and that was just from a concert's point of view. But then there was also others. There was there was cycling events that were happening. There was weddings that I was exposed to. There was the Dubai International Film Festival, which was a great experience as well. And what that helped me do is really understand what appealed to me. So I definitely came out of that understanding that the entertainment industry was not for me.
Really?
It was not for me.
Tell us more. Tell us more.
When we're talking about just when I say entertainment, I'm talking about let's just say concerts, right? Concerts. So I mean, obviously they're fun. We've all attended them, I think, as growing up. At least I did, and but it's just not something that appealed to me kind of moving forward. And it wasn't even just the late nights and all of that, because that just comes part of the package as being a part of the events industry. But there was a certain sense of I don't know if if you can say superficial, or if that's the right word, or if there was a certain sense of drama that kind of came with the artists and the entire organizational aspect of it.
Are artists kind of because as an outsider, we get this impression that a lot of artists can be drama queens. Let's put it that way. They don't get their salad or whatever it is before a show. That really exists.
Yes, 100%. It's not a myth. I can tell you that it's not a myth. They. I mean, let's not put them all on the same same boat. But some of them, I've been lucky enough to meet some that absolutely super down to earth, very grounded, really nice people, and I've been lucky enough to kind of have conversations with them and kind of understand. It is a completely different world, of course. Sure. But it was very nice to get their perspective on things. Whereas there's others that I'm not one to name and shame. I'm not going to do that.
We'll leave it at that. Some of the industry is XYZ. Got you. So you kind of thought from that, do you know what? I love this kind of work, but perhaps not the entertainment industry.
Yeah. When I was actually at one of these events that I then met my employer, who then, so she was doing, some of the activations at one of the events that I was working on.
What's an activation?
What's an activation? Yes. Look, it's a very broad terminology, and completely fair question, of course. I think it's just something that I've become kind of immune to, it's one of those words. But an activation could be really in the form, it could be something, it's really just an interaction between the end user or the audience and a brand, or and the brand could be literally it could be the event organizer, let's say, who's there to entertain in some way the audience, right? So that could be in the form of a photo opportunity. So you're essentially creating a platform for the audience to interact with, create memories. I think that's what it is at the end of the day.
Engagement between the brand, the company, and the consumer.
Yes.
Okay, got you.
And so there was there was this little machine where it was a hashtag hacking machine, so you could upload a picture of yourself on Instagram, hashtag it with a certain predetermined hashtag for the event, and as soon as you would to do that, it would actually print the picture out for you, and then you get that little souvenir to take home with you. Okay. So all these really interesting things that I hadn't come across earlier, and we got into conversation. I think there's always been with me this fear of like committing to something for too long, and I think it's just important for me to kind of lay it out there. We're keeping it real here today. But
absolutely, listen, these are the real conversations. I think there's definitely an element of that in me as well.
And
has anyone got a couch?
But so so I always kind of shied away from some like a bachelor's degree is like 4 years. I don't want to do that. A permanent job. Who's going to do that?
Yeah.
But I think I was always also at this point that I realized, okay, it's this is life. It's time to get real. Let's do this. And yes, it is. Funny enough, in my interview, I did tell her that I do have commitment issues.
You told her that?
I did.
That's an interesting interview technique.
I'm always I try and keep it real. Let's just put it that way. And I think it was important for me to be honest with her and tell her that these are my sentiments. And luckily she accepted me.
She accepted it.
Yeah.
Listen, it worked. Do you know what? I saw something recently where it was a CEO or someone like that. They received one of these kind of cold emails, right? From a website kind of marketing, website makers, right? They reached out to him and said, "Hey X, your website is effing shit."
Right.
I'm sorry, but my mother told me to be honest. Yeah. Give me a call and we'll sort it out for you. And apparently he was like, you know what? It's a different kind of technique, but it worked. And it sounded like with this employer, it definitely worked.
Seems like it. And I got the job and I was there for about 2 years. Right. Learned a lot. Very, very grateful for that opportunity. I was doing a little bit of everything. It was also a space that was just kind of finding its feet and kind of building up
as well.
So it's the same activations sort of industry itself. However, the owner was just establishing herself in Dubai, and that really gave me a lot of exposure to when we're talking about from running the business to really I had my hands full. We were talking about marketing, we're talking client servicing, we're talking about creating the proposals, talking about execution on site.
And this was a small company, right?
Yes, it was a small company, so I was just really doing everything at that point, and it was a very interesting experience. I can put it that way, and I think that's when I kind of came to the realization that I want to do more. And I want to, there's such an interesting space. There's so much technology out there, and there's so many brands with such interesting stories to tell about themselves. And, you kind of come to realize that advertising, in a sense, is just something that people want to avoid these days, right? Me personally, if I can skip an ad, I will, right?
Same.
I will. So people,
I think the skip button on YouTube hates me.
so people do go out of their way to kind of to avoid marketing messages, but then they also go out of their way to have new experiences. If you tell me that there's something new that I can try, there's a space that's like, there's a cafe that's come up with something, or there's this new thing that's happening, I want to go experience that for myself. And that's such an interesting medium for brands to be able to reach out to their audiences, have them actually believe in what the brand is about at the end of the day and translate those beliefs into experiences. And that's what I realized I wanted to do. And I wanted to do that with using technology at the same time. And that's where it all started. And I decided this is it. Yep. 21-year-old me, goes, all right, thank you very much for everything that I've learned in this space. But it's time for me to move on. And I think there was also a certain part of me that wasn't entirely sure what I was doing. Right, I had a fair vision for what's to come, but it's not like every single aspect of it was completely sorted out, and maybe I owe it a little bit to my personality to be able to kind of say, let's go with the flow and kind of figure things out as they come.
That's not something, and I've come to learn, because I'm very similar in that sense. I get to a point where I'm like, okay, do you know what? I'm confident enough that this is probably gonna work. I'm not 100% sure, but let's go for it. But I think that's where most people differ, where people kind of, do you know what, I want it to be 100%, I want it to be 110%, and they'll probably never do it. And if they do it, if it's not 100%, then they're out. So that's quite a unique quality. And the way you said it there was almost like, it's quite casual. And I've maybe it wasn't. I was quite young, can say that. So I think there was also this part of me that didn't have much to risk, let's say, and but I'm really glad that I did. And it's funny because just the other day, when I was I was thinking about this new venture that I'm looking at, and I was like, no, but what, but I don't know this and I don't know that, and I kind of reminded myself of when I was 21 years old. It's not like I knew exactly what was happening, right? And I just kind of said, no, we'll figure things out as we go. And it's and I think it's really important to be able to do that as well, because at no given point are you going to be 100% ready or perfect, because then where's the room for growth, right? 100%. And this reminds me of I'm going to butcher this quote, but it was someone famous. I think it was Kofi Annan or someone like this, who said, there's the 40-70 rule, right? And that 40-70 rule of decision making is you should be within that vicinity, 40% to 70% sure that your decision is the right decision. If you're below that, you have 40% of the information that you could have is probably a bad decision. After that, you've waited for too long. But at the same time, I think what you said about maybe being 21, for someone listening to this who's not 21, who's maybe, 40, right? And they have 2 children, a home and a picket fence, all that good stuff, 2.4 children. What do you tell someone like that who maybe wants to kind of follow in your footsteps and follow their passion and start something? How does someone like that go and make that first step?
Look, I think for me, no matter what, I think saying that things are easier when you're younger, because I've heard that, like, oh, that must have been, you're so lucky, that must have been so easy for you, you didn't have to worry about anything. And I think that the grass is always greener on the other side, right? People always think that, oh, that must have been easier because XYZ. But what you're forgetting is that, like, let's say you're 40 years old and you have that picket fence and everything. You've gained so much experience that I didn't have at that age. And I think the only thing that worked in my, or let's not say the only thing, but one of the major things that did work in my favor at that point was that when you're younger, you're kind of less cautious, right? And if I was to say something to this 40-year-old, it would be to be less. Maybe saying less cautious isn't the right way to put it, but it's definitely about just being open to kind of learn from what's happening, and that at the end of the day things do work themselves out, and that's just maybe my personal belief, because that is it's something that I really stand by. It is about like no matter what, things are going to work themselves out. And even if you fail, it's going to be okay, because you can just start something else the next day, and you're going to have learned from like the past experience as well. Yeah.
100%. I couldn't relate and agree more. I think you've definitely exceeded me in that sense, in that you've started something and it's been successful, right? I started a bunch of different things prior to what I'm doing now, which is successful. But before that, I've sold shoes, I've sold X, I've sold Y. So I can relate to also that. Maybe not selling bleach, but I used to sell tickets. I used to do a whole bunch of things. Yeah. But anyway, coming back to that. So that's where that journey started. You took that leap. Did you have anyone with you who you could say, you know what, let's do this together? Or how did that kind of pan out?
Right. So I was very lucky enough to have come across, when we were at the institute we were studying in, there's a gentleman called Hussam who now happens to be my business partner. Who we never really got along, let's put it that way, before, right? And there's constant fights. So there's this one person who, if I knew that there's going to be one person that's going to disagree with what I'm saying, it's going to be this guy. It's going to be Hassan.
That's such an interesting dynamic. Okay, I'm curious now.
Right? But then towards the end of the year, we're thrown together into a little group assignment.
Forced
and we have
cooperation.
to work it out.
Yeah.
We have to work it out. But, funny, obviously there was a friendship that grew, and, we realized that our differences were our strengths, kind of, because we complemented each other in that way, right? Different perspectives coming together to look at the same thing. He's thinking of things I'm not thinking about. I'm thinking of things he's not thinking about. And that just helped kind of form this holistic sort of picture. He was actually a banker. Funny enough, yeah.
Okay.
So obviously the whole mathematical aspect of the finance,
logical,
very, very logical. The math, the finance, all of that, I wouldn't say are my key areas of interest. However,
that's where he comes in, right? That's where he comes in.
That's where he comes in, and so I mean, we'd as friends, we'd work together in multiple places and things like that, and. We said, you know what, I think this is it. And, I just happened to be sharing with him that, like, this is what I have in mind and this is what I'd like to do. And so on and so forth. And that was just a conversation. And he said, you know what?
How did you transition from that kind of maybe headbutting to let's work together? How did that go? When? Because there must have been a spark there where one of you or both of you just went, you know what? This is actually quite a good thing.
Yeah. No, I think it was somewhere along the way. I think I think I partially owe it to growing up and also just recognizing that, okay, this is, because I think it was the headbutting usually happened when it came to matters of work, or else we'd get along.
So outside of work,
outside of work, we're great. Okay. We're really good friends. Everything works. And the minute where it's coming down to a project or it's coming down to something, then it's just
when it came down to business.
Yes, then it's just where we're thinking in opposite directions. And when we first started, working together, I think that's when there was just this friction. But I think eventually that just kind of went away. And like I said, we just kind of embraced each other's differences in that sense, and to realize that, okay, this person's what I actually acquire to kind of complete the half of me that I'm not necessarily looking at, or aspects of me that I'm not necessarily,
It sounds like you're able to differentiate, because a lot of people in that situation would just be like, you know what? I need someone who's like me. I need someone who I get along with. That's the kind of natural thing that I would probably think as well. But the logical, smarter part of me, would you know what? The non-egotistical side of me would probably say, you know what? You need that person.
Yeah.
Someone who's going to challenge you and kind of basically put you in your place when you need to be, right? Because business is hard. Most people don't have that. Most people just want to, do you know what? I get along with this person. Yes, let's go and start this thing. And it doesn't work out. Is that how you've always been? Can you look past maybe the ego or whatever you want to call it and say, actually, this is the kind of person, or this is the right thing for me to do?
I think it's important to do that. Very important to do that, because what you also, especially running a business, I think one thing that I've definitely come to realize, that it's not about me, right? It's not. It's about what I'm there to do. It's about what the bigger picture is. It's about what the vision is. It's about, and as you grow, obviously you have people that you are then that you have kind of under your wing, and that you're responsible for in a certain way as well. And like, those aspects just kind of remind you to say that now this isn't about you.
Absolutely.
So put yourself aside there, and then you do what needs to be done for the business. And kind of adopting that mindset is really what helped both Hussam and myself really, be able to work together and say that, look, this is what needs to be done for the good of our business. But we also, I think, a big part of it was respect for each other, right? So knowing that you're not being dismissive of anyone's opinions. You're not being dismissive of anyone's suggestions. That there's always that if this has been put on the table, there's a reason for it, and then we're able to actually take a step back and kind of look at things from a more objective point of view and say, okay, and reach middle ground. So yeah, but to go back to your question, I think that what's really, really important, I really would say, is to kind of say that, yes, this is your vision, and yes, this is kind of your baby, right, at the end of the day. But this isn't, the entire picture isn't just about
100%,
you. Yeah.
100%. I think, that is something that you can develop. I think it's something that you have to almost beat out of yourself, right? Because especially when you started that, right? Because your baby, there's that ego that kind of comes in where you think, you know what, this is mine. You can't tell me what to do or whatever it is. But that's such an impediment to your success, to your growth, right? To kind of move on from that. Okay, perfect. So you found a partner, things work out, you go in, you start the venture. How was that? Maybe, I don't know, the first year.
Oh. Honestly, I think it was probably one of the most exciting parts. One of the most exciting years so far. Let's just say, definitely the most difficult as well. There were ups and downs, and you've probably heard this so many times. It's a roller coaster ride, but there really isn't anything else to kind of describe it better. We started off, and obviously there was a lot of like self-compromises and things like that were there. I can tell you, we started off on a salary of like 2,000 dirhams a month, because we were like, you know what, yes, we need to survive, but also this thing needs to get off the ground. And that was our thinking. And I can assure you, 2,000 dirhams isn't a lot of money. It's not a lot of money to be able to survive. Yeah, just in Dubai on a monthly basis. And so there was, sacrifices from that aspect, but also every small thing was just this huge celebration, right? So from our first project that we won to the to a bigger sort of pitch, or when we like even getting like a little coffee machine in the office was a big deal.
Yeah.
You know, we were like, okay,
we're in the big league now.
Yes.
Could it make like a flat white as well, though, or just the simple stuff?
100%.
Okay, you've completed life.
Yeah, it was so we're kind of funny enough, we actually started off working out of my garage, my house, and then we
proper
transitioned.
Startup story.
That is, it really was, and we was just there, and we're kind of brainstorming the ways of like, what's the venture going to be called, and what's this, and what's all the little details. But it was those moments that that kind of said, okay, we've got to keep going. There's light at the end of that road, the end of that tunnel. It's happening. So and then just kind of celebrating all of those little successes, and everything worked out.
That's important.
Well.
That's important. You often forget when you're working however many hours you did that. Do you know what? Yes, that client giving me that call when pitching. That's a mini win.
Yeah,
for
that
sure. First kind of client, someone actually trusts in what we do, right? It's almost like a sense of validation, right? But I'm curious about one thing. Why the hanging house? How did you come about that name?
It's super simple. It's because we execute. It's just
I like that. Cold-blooded. Nice.
Yeah, because as an agency, there's a lot. Look, I don't want to overkill it, but as an agency, there's a lot of. There's some that do just the creative aspects of things. There's a lot of times that there's big promises, but when it comes down to to the delivery of it, there's sometimes this mismatch, and that was one thing that that is one thing we take a lot of pride in at the moment, and it was also one thing that we said we're not going to compromise on. You get exactly what you're asking for. Okay. Hence, we execute.
You execute. I like that. The hanging house. Crazy. You take the other agencies to the slaughterhouse.
Yeah, just a bit of humor there, just a bit.
So let's say I don't know. Let's say I'm a prospect, right?
Yeah.
I own a recruitment agency, right? And I want to stand out. I want to use your services. How can you help me? And how would you maybe start that conversation with me?
I think it would be important for me to understand as to what it is that who is it that you're speaking to, right? Who is your primary clientele? What message is it that you're aiming to deliver to them? And most importantly, how do you want to make them feel at the end of the day, right? And then what we're going to do is we'll sit down and kind of work out how we can communicate that in the form of an experience, right? And I know that the word experience can be very broad, but it's what we do is we break it down and kind of say, is this going to be, are we going to be at, like, let's say as a recruitment agency, let's say maybe you're aiming to recruit the right talent, but what is it that they want to feel at the end of the day? How do you want them to trust you? And then how do we kind of go about gaining their trust? What is it that we can do to do that, in the form of something that's actually tangible, something that they can interact with, immerse with, and that leaves an impression on them at the end of the day. I'll leave it at that.
No, it's an incredibly, it's a completely new area to me. It's not an area that I can think of situations where I've been in expos or whatever it is, where I've had to be basically immersed in that experience. Yeah. But it sounds like such a unique way to stand out from the crowd. If we were to bring someone in into Razor Point, which is my company, getting them involved in how we do, and I think that creative process, which is literally your role,
what I do,
must be such an exciting thing to think. Okay, who are your customers, and what are you trying to make them feel? Right, that's such a unique perspective on marketing in general. And how you go about doing that. It must involve a lot of like psychological elements, a lot of
lots of research,
human nature.
Yeah, lots of research. But that's the fun part of it. That's
Wow.
right. So there's an aspect of it that I mean, creative can be applied in so many different ways, right? So, but there's a part of me that growing up, for example, like I said, I was a writer. I wasn't the artist, I wasn't the one that was drawing and painting
Right.
and things like that. But I've kind of realized that I've actually come to develop a sense of design over the years. And so what's really, I mean, the point really that I'm trying to make is that with what I do, I think there's so many areas of exploration, and you get to learn so much on a daily basis as well. And that's what I'd say keeps me going.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely. It's
yeah.
so funny to kind of see your story coming from this 16, 17-year-old young woman who wanted to be a journalist, and your interest there was people, right? And
Yeah.
how it's manifested into essentially working with people and how
Yeah.
you make them feel, right? Super fascinating, Anam. Lovely to kind of
Thank
learn
you.
about you, your story, and we should do this again, 100%.
100%. Lovely chatting with you. Thank you for making this as enjoyable as it has been.
Likewise.
Yeah.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Thank you.
Hey, I hope you enjoyed the conversation. If you liked it, leave a like, share, comment, subscribe, leave a good review, good rating. And if there is someone else that you'd like me to have a chat with, let me know in the comment section. Again, don't forget to share this. That's how we're going to get the word out there. That's how we're going to build a community around what we're doing here. Follow us on Instagram, LinkedIn, all kind of major platforms, and we'll be releasing every week. So stay tuned.